we first started getting into mocks this year, you were taking the two tight end approach in your drafts. You would grab a mid-round guy.
I know where this is going.
And I was all about the one tight end. Like, I was like, no, don't waste another draft pick on a tight end. But I've really come around after digging into some of the tight end breakouts over the last couple of years, especially in a year like this one where you could get a couple extra bench spots added in. I've swung all the way to grabbing potentially 3 tight ends late in my draft. Whoa. Every year we see a couple guys break out. Seemingly out of nowhere, we had Darren Waller, Mark Andrews last season. In 2018, we saw breakouts from George Kittle, Austin Hooper, even David Njoku was a top, I think he was 8th in 2018 at the tight end position. We saw Jared Cook break out in 2017, his first year at Oakland. Like, if you're taking these shots on these deeper tight ends, somebody's got to break out. We see it every single season. And so it's like, hey, you're already going to cut most of the players you grab in the later rounds of your draft anyways. Why not grab a few lottery tickets, spread out your chances, and if one hits, now you have a weekly advantage at the tight end position. And this worked out for me great last year because I was a guy on the Mark Andrews train. And it worked out tremendously. And so here's the guys that I have. This is going late tight end. You don't get a Kittle. You don't get a Kelsey. I know you'll probably talk about Hurst and Higbee. I'm kind of out on these guys unless they really, really fall. And the running backs and the wide receivers are just gross and they're still there. Sure. Why not? Maybe even Evan Ingram as well. But Here's what I got. Tier 1 of the late tight end strategy, you got Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson, Mike Gesicki, Blake Jarwin, Jonnu Smith. At Tier 2, you got Jack Doyle, Ian Thomas, Irv Smith. And then in Tier 3, for the real freaks, Jace Sternberger, Dawson Knox, and little CJ Vert, CJ Uzama in there. We'll throw him in, even though it might actually be Drew Sample as the tight end to own in Cincy, if you want to take the shot. But JJ Zacharyson, everybody knows him, at Late Round QB on Twitter, FanDuel Sports Network podcaster, fantastic. Go listen to his show. He was looking at what goes into the recipe of a breakout tight end, and there were 2 things that he mentioned that make a lot of sense to me, and it makes some of these names even more appealing. There's 2 things that have a high correlation with a breakout tight end. It is actually draft capital. One of the highest correlations in breakout between draft capital and breakout versus running backs, wide receivers. If you get a tight end early, the team invests in them, they're probably going to use them. And there's a correlation with a good quarterback. And that just makes sense because everything is dependent on the quarterback for any pass-catching weapon. But, I mean, what is that? So draft capital and a good quarterback, well, that makes a lot of sense to me when we're looking at TJ Hawkinson, Blake Jarwin, Noah Fant, Jonnu Smith. I mean, Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson were first and second round draft
They were both
picks.
in the first round, Steph.
Were they?
I was looking at this the other day, and I was blown away because Noah Fant was taken 20th overall, and Hawkinson was taken 8th overall, and they both went to Iowa. Like, what are they putting in their corn in Iowa to get both of these guys as tight ends on the same team as top 20 picks? That's crazy to me. And we know rookie tight ends don't typically produce in their rookie season, so you look at Fant, and I love the call out. You look at Fant and Hawkinson, the draft capital's there. And I think you were getting here, but Hawkinson has Stafford as his quarterback. They're going to be a passing offense. That's great. And then Noah Fant, we don't really know about Drew Lock, but he could easily be the number 2 target on that team.
Dude, exact. Same with Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith could be the 2. Irv Smith could be the 2. It's a hot take, but I'm throwing it out there. Irv Smith could be the 2 in Minnesota if Justin Jefferson can't elevate. I'm not going to project it, but I think there's a world that it happens. We know the Vikings have lost some members on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're going to throw a little bit more this year. I think there will be regression to the mean for them. They threw dead last year. So I think there'll be more passing volume there. No Stephon Diggs. I love Irv Smith as a flyer. I really do. And there was a draft that I did the other day. I was able to get Fant and Hawkinson and Irv Smith. And I felt great.
Whoa.
So
going for the triple.
Again, these are with my last 3. I think I reached up a little bit on Fant. Like, he was my 4th to last pick. But, I mean, last 4 rounds, last 4 picks. So I love it. I love it, man. You kind of got me there to the edge. And then over this last week, just looking into it, like, I'm all in. I'm all in.
I wasn't going to shove you. I let you fall off the edge on your own. But I've been preaching this for so long. I am so glad to finally have you on board. And I did this last year, and it worked to perfection. I love taking 2 tight ends in drafts because there's never enough tight ends. Like, I love taking someone volatile, maybe in the middle rounds. And even if you do it, I love taking someone volatile. So whether it's because of injury risk or involvement uncertainty, and then another option later on that's just another dart throw. Like last year, I took Evan Ingram in the middle rounds of my draft, and he was tight end 2 through the first 5 games of the season. I knew he had injury risk, and I also picked up Darren Waller late in my draft. So I was all aboard that Hard Knocks hype. Shout out to Hard Knocks season as well.
Hey,
and that paid off perfectly. I had the tight end 2. Yeah, I had the tight end 2 through 5 weeks, and then also had Darren Waller, who was an incredible value and one of the breakouts at the position. So you mentioned I was going to bring this up, but I love grabbing Higbee or Hurst in those middle rounds. They are high upside plays, but there's still a lot of uncertainty with their situation, how they're going to be used. Higbee, we don't know what the offense is going to look like. Hurst, obviously, on a new team. And then the late round flyers, Gesicki, Fant, Hawkinson, Jarwin. Give me one of those guys in the last couple rounds as well. And here's the thing. If they suck, cut them. Who cares?
Yeah.
But if they're good, you have an incredibly valuable trade chip at the tight end position. If you look at the tight end position, it's actually kind of like musical chairs. There are more teams. If we're talking about a typical 12-team league or higher, there are more teams in the league than there are week in and week out starters at the tight end position. It's been that way for years. And if you get 2 of the startable tight ends, you have a ton of value because the teams that don't have a tight end are going to say, okay, what's the one thing I can do to improve my lineup? It's the tight end spot. And no one else is going to be willing to trade one because they don't want to be in that same position. So if you have 2, you have some leverage in that scenario. And just to illustrate this stuff, in a typical 12-team league, that means there's going to be 12 starting tight ends. So here is the tight end 12 points per game for the last 3 seasons. This past year, the tight end 12 averaged 8.5 fantasy points per game. The year before, it was 8.2. And the year before that, it was 8.3.
Shout out to
there's
Jason
someone
Witt.
in your league. Yeah, there's someone in your league starting a tight end week in and week out, giving them 8 fantasy points a game. And you know they're not happy with that production. I wouldn't be happy with it. And people are starting that, or they're trying to stream the position and pray for a touchdown. And if it doesn't happen, they're getting 5 points. So the tight end spot is an incredible value. One, so you don't end up in that situation. Give yourself another chance to get your tight end in the limited quantity of tight ends in the league. And then also, if you end up hitting on both, or if you said you draft 3, maybe hit 2 out of 3, or perfect scenario 3 out of 3, you have some incredible trade chips in your league where you can get some really good value and have some people overpay.